Hey,
Hey, how are you?
good. How are you?
Good. Let's see what we've got here. Did you have a good day?
Oh yeah, got a lot accomplished.
All right. You
Oh,
sound all right. Um, I am going to see who logs in.
Hey Laura,
And
this is Nicole, as you know.
yeah,
Hi.
Justin asked
hey,
that I share the link so she can kind of just
sure,
shadow us tonight.
sure, sounds good. I
So
am
if you want to rename yourself, you can do it in the top right corner with the three dots. All right, cool. And I'm just gonna rename my last name. We just had an extra R in there. Okay, go ahead, Lorna, take it away.
oh, nothing. I am getting ready to call Mr. Dickinson and see if he needs help logging in. And the only thing I might ask you to do is I sent you the board names and
The
with their,
roster?
yeah, the roster.
Yeah.
If Mr. Johnson hasn't logged in by 5:45,
Okay.
do you mind giving him a call?
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, that would be great. And then I can set up the cue the presentation and the agenda.
Great.
So
That
I
sounds
think
great.
we're good to go.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Meeting.
Let's go.
Yes. Okay, I'd like to call to order the 882nd meeting of the Board of Directors of AlexRenew Enterprises, formerly known as Alexandria Sanitation Authority. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as it appears?
So move.
Is there a second? Mr. Beal, is that a second?
Yes.
Let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Beal?
Aye.
Ms. Caldarelli?
Aye.
Mr. Dickinson?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Okay, at this point, let's have our counsel advise us on the procedures of an electronic meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic emergency, the April 20th, 2021 AlexRenew Enterprises Board of Directors are meeting electronically pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23708.2A3, the Continuity of Government Ordinance adopted by the City Council on June 20th of 2020, and the House Budget Bill sections HB 29 and HB 30 from last year's budget to undertake essential business. The Board of Directors and the staff are participating from remote locations through a video conference call on Zoom, and the meeting is being recorded. We have provided an opportunity for the public to speak to the board this evening, but no members of the public have indicated or registered to speak to the board. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Counselor. Since we have no public comment, let's move right into the consent calendar. Board members, I'll give you a minute to review the content of the consent calendar. And if there are any comments, please make it known. Any comments on the minutes from the previous meeting? If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
So moved.
So I have a motion and a second.
Second.
How do you vote, Mr. Beal?
Aye.
Ms. Caldarelli?
Aye.
Dickinson?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Hill? Aye. Okay. Now, the most important item before us is, of course, the consideration of the budget and setting public hearing for May. But let's first hear from the chairman of our Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Johnson. Bruce, how was your review of the budget, and what points would you like to cover?
Well, we have reviewed this budget in the finance subcommittee, and its initial draft, a slightly, no, not significantly altered version in our March meeting. And I just wanted to check. I didn't see, Christine, any material changes in this budget document compared to last month's document. Is that true?
That's correct, Bruce. Really no changes at all.
Okay. So, the budget reflects the full-scale launch of AlexRenew in terms of its spending in fiscal year 22. We will be spending large amounts of money on AlexRenew, and over $100,000 in the capital program is 137. Mostly of that is AlexRenew, and borrowing large amounts of money. I think it was both under WIFIA and the Virginia Resource Authority. Is that correct? And so we've got lots of borrowing set up to draw cash to pay for this project, and those are reflected in the numbers here. There's some uncertainty about the budget in the sense of what exactly is going to happen with the fee collections, which we discussed at the last meeting. I believe what we've got here is a relatively safe assumption in the sense that we've assumed a lot of revenue coming in, a relatively modest, I don't know how do I put this. We may get more revenue than what we're projecting here, but that would be okay, because if we accumulate revenue, we can make adjustments later on if we need to in the pace at which rate increases might need to occur. But we are recommending for this board's adoption a 2-year rate increase in a year in 2022, or this summer for 2022, and then next summer for 2023, of about 6.5% or so each year. So I think it looks good on the long term in terms of where we'll end up having to increase the rate by the time the project's over, and project costs seem much more certain now than they did before. So that's it from 30,000 feet. I know others have questions of Christine or things they'd want to add for the record.
Thank you, Bruce. As complete as the budget document is, I still think the entire thing is presented beautifully on the bottom of page 12. The consolidated enterprise budget really tells the story of this budget for the fiscal year. All the growth is, as you said, in the capital programs, especially almost entirely AlexRenew. And the operating budget is flat, has not really changed by a percentage point. And all the growth in the budget that is driving the rate increase is AlexRenew. And I think that's presented very well on page 12. Any comments from the board members?
Again, I think it's very well presented. And it's a continuing every year, but well done and very readable. Thank you.
Yeah, I got nothing to add. Nice job from staff, Christine. Thank you.
As the agenda says, there's two specific actions that we'll need to take. One is to approve the budget for publication, public information before we adopt it a month from now in its final form. And the second is to approve the rate increase that would also need to be publicly advertised before its adoption, in June, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Bruce, let's take it one at a time. Let's just deal with the adoption of the budget. Do you want to make a motion to approve the budget as it appears?
Yeah, if everybody's else ready. Adriana, you have anything?
I don't have any comments, no.
Just a point of information, please. You're not approving the budget, you're approving the resolution to post it for public notice.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So I would make a motion to approve the budget as contained in our materials today for public notice and set a budget hearing for Saturday, May 22nd at 9:30 a.m. Just as a note, that's not a regular time we meet, so everybody needs to make sure they've got it on their calendar and they'll be available for that meeting.
Will do.
Is there a second to the motion?
A second.
You? Let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Beal,
Aye.
Ms. Caldarelli,
Aye.
Mr. Dickinson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Hill, aye. Okay, now let's address the second item, which is the adjustment in the rates. It appears on tab 3 of your material. Madam CEO, do you want to say a word or two about the rates, although we're all very familiar with them?
No, sir, I think that Mr. Johnson covered it adequately. What you're doing here is adopting a resolution to allow us to post these so that you can receive public notice and public comment at the same time on that May 22nd date. So if there are any additional questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Just for a point of information, and one question for confirmation from staff is that in these percentage increases, essentially the same percentage increases applied to the base fee as well as the volumetric fee going forward in both of these years. Is that true?
Yes, I believe that
And
that's
so,
correct.
and so and the rates are shown there, and the average bills, I think, for an average residential customer with 4,000 gallons of usage a month are in the materials. I'm ready to make a motion if anybody else doesn't have anything else to say then.
I do have a quick question. So on the agenda, it says the public meeting's at 9, and on the resolution, it says 9:30. Which is it?
It is 9:30. The updated draft agenda that I have does say 9:30, so perhaps there's been a couple of iterations. Sorry about that.
No worries.
It's 9:30. It's whatever's on the resolution.
Okay.
Ah, I see. It's the one posted on the webinar. Thank you. The one in your package says 9:30.
So it's 9:30.
And we imagine this will be a public Zoom meeting?
It
again
is a
in May?
virtual meeting, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I
Okay,
just
well,
wanted to point out one other minor detail. The agenda refers to it as a consideration of a resolution to adopt. And as it appears in your materials, it's a resolution of intent to adopt. Just want to make sure we're clear on that, where you're not adopting the rates today, you're simply publishing your intent, and then that'll be reviewed at the public hearing.
So noted, Counselor.
Didn't change.
Okay, then I will say those words here. I move that we adopt a resolution of intent to adopt and change certain rates, fees, and charges for public notice at public hearing for Saturday, May 22nd at 9:30.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Beal, let's do a
Yes.
roll call vote. Mr. Beal,
Aye.
Ms. Caldarelli,
Aye.
Mr. Dickinson,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Hill, aye. So moved. Let's move on to the CEO's report and the monthly updates. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't know if you wanted to take a moment and speak to the council board work group meeting that was held last evening. Lauren, if you can put that down, please. Thank you. Did you want to say a few words about the meeting last evening?
Yes, I do. The meeting yesterday with the mayor and Councilwoman Jackson went very well. It was a very complete update on the state of the AlexRenew project. And I'd have to summarize the reactions of the mayor and the councilwoman were very positive, especially having to deal with the impact of the projected rate increase. The fact that the projections now are running below the initial estimates of the cost of the project, especially as far as the impact on the average ratepayer. I think that was a pleasant surprise. There was a fair discussion about nutrient credits and some, I think the CEO did an excellent job educating the audience about the nutrient credits that could be created by AlexRenew and the fact that they are really a limited use for other purposes outside of AlexRenew. And I think answered some questions about that. I think that went very well. All in all, I think a very positive meeting. I was surprised at the mayor's interest in driving the tunnel boring machine. So I think we'll somehow make an allowance for that. I'll leave that up to the CEO to arrange that driving exercise. And I'm sure that.
Let me just work that into the.
But no, and the other thing that I think was also very interesting and I think very important was Councilwoman Jackson had a real interest in educating school, the school population, the school children about what's going on underground. And maybe AlexRenew could use this as an opportunity to really maybe inspire some Alexandria school children to pursue careers in engineering. I think it's a great idea. And I think the technology enables that with remote cameras and web presence and all that sort of thing. So I think a great opportunity, and the interest and support from council really is, I think, wonderful. Jim, you were in the meeting as well.
I'm always amazed by the interest and the focus that both the mayor and Councilwoman Jackson bring. That this is not terribly exciting stuff. It's dry, it's technical, and for someone that's not in engineering or construction to be that involved, it's nice to see. They take it very seriously, and I think the graphics and the material that staff provides them are very helpful in letting them understand what's going on. Justin was racing ahead. We started talking about nutrient credits, and he was about 3 pages ahead of our chairman in talking about it. But,
It's Justin.
yeah.
All in all, a good meeting and very well. I think AlexRenew presented itself very, very well. So kudos to the team, kudos to the CEO, and very well done. Any other comments on that?
Well, I monitored it and I would agree. Justin was fascinated with the nutrient business. And I think they both finally understand this is not the panacea to their storm dilemma. We can help, but it's not the solution. Also, I've just been really impressed, not just recently, but for a long time, the clarity in which the presentations are made. Graphics, be it to the stakeholder group or to the mayor and councilwoman Jackson, they're really first rate. And it shows a lot of effort getting it down into something graphic and easy to understand. Well done.
I agree. One of the more interesting graphics was at the end of the presentation where Justin, Justin Carl and our CEO presented the sort of schedule of upcoming events in the community and communication events. And just the number of communication events that are scheduled over the next several months, really impressive. Karen, we make that available to the board members, right? That schedule of upcoming events?
What I will do is send the presentation from last evening along tomorrow for you.
Yeah, because I
separately.
I want to attend as many of those as I can. I think that there's one coming up, I think in May and maybe, anyway, yeah. Good.
Yeah, some community listening sessions that are a requirement of some of the city permits that we have to start work out in the different areas.
I thought also there was relief on the part both of the mayor and council member Jackson on our rates. And that one chart you have, it was like, thank God. They were very pleased with that. And it's something they can, I think, there's going to be a lot of people calling them about their rates, not knowing who we are, which is understandable. To go to their council member and having them armed with the information, I think is really, really important.
Another slide that seemed to attract a lot of attention, was very informative, was that one water slide where
yes.
where you can see that every aspect of water is going up, both the water supply and the city fee and the stormwater fee. The interesting observation there is AlexRenew is only 40% of that total charge per household, but because of this project, it's probably the most visible portion, and we'll probably get most people thinking we're responsible for that entire charge. And I think educating everybody about where the fees are coming from is going to be very important. So, yeah, very well done. All in all, Madam CEO, I think another great presentation by your team. So kudos for that. And let's jump into the monthly report.
Thank you. And thank you for recognizing the hard work of the OA team. They put a lot of effort in creating the story and putting together, I think, as you said, a very simple yet concise presentation package. It's a rare skill. So I'm hoping that they stick with us here because they could really make a lot of money out in the market if other people found them. Believe me, I sat through one today that was just all words. So thank you for recognizing that. And there is a lot of time and thought that goes into that to make sure that the message resonates and that we're all using the same terminology. So a couple of things that I wanted to point out in my report. First of all, if you read the first page, the city on the third paragraph, And I've also attached the presentation. The city staff is continuing to work on the flood mitigation program that they started a while ago at the waterfront. They have reached out to AlexRenew and asked us if we would work with them as they work to design 2 pump stations that they need to make this project whole. This is something that AlexRenew staff normally does whenever there's a new development and a new pump station or infrastructure that would be deeded over to AlexRenew. While we wouldn't be owners of this, we definitely have the expertise around pump stations, which is why the city reached out. So unless I hear direction otherwise from the board members, I will respond back to the city and let them know that we will partner with them to help them as they concept and design these 2 pump stations as they work towards figuring out what the look and feel of this waterfront flood mitigation program is going to be.
Did have a question? And that is, if we assist on the design of the pumps, does that lead us into the maintenance and operation of it?
It's an opportunity to do that. That is something we would, again, talk about later once we're there to see, are we the ones that are going to, would we strike a contract with the city for the operations and maintenance of their facilities? I don't know. It's not till 2028 that we would have.
Okay, it's far enough off.
Exactly. It's well off, but the thing is, in the event that that would happen, at least we've had a say in the beginning about what works for us, what's safe, what is similar in terms of motors and pumps and equipment that we use in our own facility. So I think that's why this is an opportunity, to use our expertise, to use what we do well, to help the city. They don't have that expertise, which is why they've reached out to us. And then as things progress, this is a progressive design build. We're now familiar with design build. So they're just at the very beginning stages. And as things progress, then we can continue to build on that relationship and see where it takes us.
Thank you for the package of the information. I went through it briefly. Well, are you going to have a presentation on this later on in this program? Or is that just for our FYI?
That's just for your FYI. I sat in on the same presentation. Really, all they know is they think they need 2 pump stations. They're smaller than what they had originally thought. They think they're in these 2 locations. Again, it's a design build. So this is not a design bid build. They haven't designed anything. They're just in the beginning stages of reaching out to the community to figure out what is it we can do and how much money do we have and how do we make this work?
Well, I'm sure you paid, with our tunnel, if they're going to have some controlled flooding, I'm sure we're concerned that it not enter our system and flood out our tunnels. We can't take in the whole Potomac River.
Well, they're 2 different systems. So
Right.
Our combined sewer, this is about stormwater and flooding and nuisance flooding from the Potomac. Very different situations.
But the chances of that nuisance flooding getting into our system is not there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Karen, during the initial phases of this, I realize that the relationship may go from here till 2028 and maybe beyond. But is the advice they're going to be getting from us significant enough that there's any chargeback? And also, is it AlexRenew staff is going to be helping, or contractors to AlexRenew going to be helping?
So the answer to the second question is it'll be both. We'll have our O&M staff there and our engineering, our own AlexRenew staff, but we still need the hydraulics piece of it. We may need some other staff from the Brown and Caldwell team who actually has a basic ordering agreement with us on this. On the first part, we are not directing them they have an owner's advisor that'll be designing this. It's really they'll design it much like we have developers design the pump stations. They give it to us and we review it. And we say, no, instead of using this pump, use this pump. Or we can ask those kind of questions or put the valve here so that we can access it as opposed to not having a valve at all. It's that kind of guidance and feedback and direction that we would be giving.
So we're sort of a sounding board as well as somebody who's going to give feedback. And whatever the costs are, we will just absorb them at least initially, unless it becomes more substantial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just part of the service. There's a lot of design work that goes on in the city that, those plans come to us for review, putting things into the system, development plans. They're all things that we do as a norm. This is just another development plan, essentially.
It appears as though the sense of the board is to allow and perhaps even encourage our CEO to work with the city on this topic. I think it's part of being a good citizen and a good member of the community, and it is our area of expertise.
One note of caution: the project is going to be extremely controversial. To its expense, and the delicate decisions have to be made between how much intermittent flooding do you allow to make the pump smaller, I think, is kind of the dilemma they're dealing with right now in their design. And that's not what a lot of people thought was going to happen. They thought there'd be a wall up there, and it's not going to be washed over very often. So, it's the city's front and center on this, just as we chose to be front and center on the tunnel. The city's responsible. Let's not be in any position where it says, oh, AlexRenew told us to do this, that, or the other thing. And if it's not working or it's costing a lot, it's their fault,
Right, and
just be careful.
Right. Understood. That's not our role. Our role is really to reflect back what works in terms of those two pump stations where the city doesn't have that experience in operating and maintaining them. But yes,
particularly when they had their own owner advisor who's going to be working with them on the design for this project, the initial design. That we're not doing that work for them, so that's good.
Correct.
Very good point. Very good point, Bruce. A 1 to 2 foot rise in the Potomac over the next 30 years. That is a daunting challenge. Any more discussion on this? Otherwise, Madam CEO, any other topics on the monthly report you want to cover?
There's not on the report itself that I would like to go over with you, but if I could ask the board's indulgence, there is something I would like to share and review with you more on an educational type of arena, and actually ask for your help. It's come up over the last few months as I've watched the issues around stormwater, around flooding, conversations from the public as they have talked to us, talked to City Council, and trying to make sure that there's more clarity. And I could use your help on getting the terminology correct. And if we're all saying the same things and understanding that, I think that would help. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to walk through just how our sewer system works, some of the issues around that, to try to help all of us have the same language as we go out and talk to the community members, and also to answer some questions that a few of you have even asked over the last month about our role in flooding versus sanitary sewers versus combined sewers. So if you're okay with that, I put a couple of slides together to walk us through that.
Please do. I was at the walkthrough of the Taylor Run issue a couple days ago, and these kinds of issues are front and center in the city. So anything you can do to educate us is appreciated.
I appreciate your time. And hopefully, as I go through this, please stop me to ask or any questions, or if I've not explained something as well as we all need it. So moving on, what I'd like to do is, again, walk through how water works in Alexandria. I think the more we hear it, the more we get used to it. Talking about Alexandria sewer systems, and then AlexRenew, like moving down in how does our interceptor work? What is inflow, infiltration, stormwater, sanitary sewer, combined sewer, looking all of that. And then there's been some direct questions about our role in Delray and why we're causing the flooding. So I wanted to address that a little bit and then leave you with some takeaways from this presentation as we move forward. So within the city of Alexandria, there's a number of entities that do water. Virginia American Water issues its own bill. So the community gets a bill from Virginia American Water, and that's for drinking water. That's for the clean water they buy that they put into your home, and you use that water. When you use that water, that goes into a collection system, a series of underground pipes. Those pipes are owned and maintained by the city of Alexandria. That is the dirty water piece of it. It's the water that comes from your home. It's either in separate sanitary sewers or it's in that small combined sewer area in Old Town. That water gets picked up. It's in all these, a myriad of lots of little pipes under the ground. We have 4 large interceptors that pick up all that water and carry and transport that water, that wastewater to AlexRenew, where we clean it, put it out in the stream. On the other side of the equation, there's a bunch, about 95% of the city that is a separate stormwater system. So the catch basins, the roof drains, the things that are stormwater only when it rains, that is in a separate system. Again, it is owned and maintained by the city. That bill or those fees are on, I believe, your property tax. Aaron can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then we bill, you will get an AlexRenew bill. It has our wastewater bill on it, as well as the city's fees for that. So
Karen,
moving,
sorry,
yes.
before you move on, I just want to clarify something in my own head. So AlexRenew does not own any of the collection systems. So your ownership begins at the plant, or did I misunderstand?
We own the pump stations and the interceptors. So we only own about 20 miles, and it's really not the collection system itself. It's the superhighways that pick up all of the pipes. And so we own those. We own the outfalls, and we'll own the tunnel system that collects the combined sewer, the captured combined sewers. Okay. The city owns all of the other pipes. And then of course, the laterals from your house to the street, to the mains, those are owned by the private homeowners or buildings. So on the next slide, you've seen this before. This is the service area for AlexRenew. Back when we were created, we were set up as a regional entity to take in parts of Fairfax County that gravity flowed to AlexRenew or to Alexandria. And you can see this small blue portion is about 5% of the whole city of Alexandria, and that's the combined system, and I'll get into that in a second. The rest of it, which is in green in the city, is served by a separate sanitary sewer and a separate storm system. And then of course we have the portion of the sewer system, the sanitary sewer system that flows to Arlington. Fairfax County owns its own collection system, and they are completely separate, both in storm and sanitary. Moving on to the next slide, keep hearing me really focus on sanitary sewer lines and storm sewer lines. And this is the reason why they're different. In most of the US and anything that is put in new, there's two pipes that go in the ground. The left pipe is the one that captures that dirty water, the water that you've used in your home, and it has certain design standards, and that water is captured in that collection system that the city owns, or Fairfax, and then we pick it up in our interceptors and it comes to us. That should only be dirty water. You can see there is no stormwater that goes into that. On the right-hand side, you've got, when it rains, you've got catch basins, you've got roof drains, you may have sump pumps, French drains. All of that should be captured and put into the storm sewer lateral. So these two are different. One's dirty water, one's captured storm water. This should only be full when it rains. This flows 24/7, 365, because it's capturing the flows from your home, from your showers, from your sinks, from whatever that you may have that goes in there. So that's a big difference. I think we get really confused because we have a combined system that exists in the city of Alexandria. And if we flip to the next slide, this is that 5% of the city. It all goes into one pipe. Combined systems, you can no longer build. It is illegal to have a combined sewer system being built. And that is why so many of the 800 entities across the country have various programs to try to remove the stormwater from the sanitary sewer system, right? This is a health issue and this gets combined and you have these overflows that go into the river. And you can see in this case where those connections are made into the system. And again, our permits only allow us to have the separate sanitary sewer going forward. So another thing that keeps coming up, we talk about rain and rain events and what that looks like. So if we go to the next slide, we try to explain what a 100-year storm is. Just what is a 100-year storm? What we try to do is we try to have a measure for the size and intensity when it rains. And NOAA actually puts this together. They set the classifications. They have data of rain events and how long they are and how extreme they were from 1890 to today. And usually what you see flashed up in front of you when somebody talks about a 100-year storm is this graphic that has a whole bunch of lines across it where you can go up and pick your size and intensity. We've tried to, it's, I think it's called an IDF curve. And there's one for each amount of rain that comes. And what we've tried to do is simplify that and give you an example. So in this case, we picked a rainfall or a storm event. It was a 2-hour storm. And across the top where we have highlighted in red, in that 2-hour storm, we had 3.86 inches of rain. So what's the probability of having that happen based on all of this data that NOAA has in the curves? It's about 1%. So there's a recurrence interval of 100 years. Now, going back to the probability, the chance of being equal or exceeded in any given year of 1%, we also know that with climate change, with some of the changing conditions, you can have back-to-back 100-year storms. But the probability over the long range, looking at all that data, runs you about 1%. Now, if you had a rain event, say it rains tomorrow and it's only 1.7 inches, you can look at this and say, oh, well, in these 2 hours where I had this storm, it's really only a 2-year storm. That's what we're trying to get to, is looking at how intense the storm is, how probable is it that it happens over and over again. It's a way to help us figure out design parameters when they go to storm systems and set it up. We're going to design to a 10-year storm. You can see this is how often it would be and what that means. It also tells them when it can be captured and not. So we tried to simplify it. That is my very high level explanation of a 100-year storm. But I just wanted to get that out there as we start talking about the different parameters we use for creating designs for storm sewers versus separate sanitary sewers.
Karen, before you move on, I have to tell you, that is the simplest, most powerful presentation of this concept I have ever seen. I don't know who worked on this, but they really did an outstanding job. And by the way, these curves are unique to this geographic area, right?
I am not sure on that one. I would have to find out and get back to you. But yes.
My understanding is they are, that you have, they're called intensity, duration, frequency, and they're different for every geographic place because rainfall is different.
It is,
Yes.
yeah. And
Yes, 100%.
excellent, very good.
No, and thank you. When they showed me the graph, I said, oh, we can't show that. I can't even understand that, and I have to speak to it. So thanks to Mr. Carl and his team for acquiescing to my request to try to make this so I could understand it, because it's a challenging concept. So moving on to the next slide. What we have here is how do we design these? And they're really designed very, very differently. Here we're talking about the sanitary sewer interceptors. They're a little bit different. Each of the collection systems are smaller pipes. And then here I'm talking about what are we guided by? What are we directed under as we look to add or improve our existing 20 miles of interceptor? We're governed by the State Water Control Board through the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. There's regulations in Virginia code that tell us exactly how we're going to design these pipes, the size, the flow, the grade line that has to go in there. And for us, the design requirement is we know kind of the average daily flow per capita. We know how much water people basically use in a day. And we use that, and then we take 200% of that to accommodate some movement in the pipes, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So it's really 2 times the dry weather flow. So when you look at AlexRenew, our design capacity at the facility is 54 million gallons a day. So basically we would double that. And that's the 108 that's in our permit. Those are where those numbers come from. There's actually a basis in engineering design in our guidance and in our regulation that gives us those numbers, and that's how we're permitted. Storm sewers are a little bit different, and you can see there some of the governance and guidance around those. This is outside the scope of AlexRenew, much to what Mr. Johnson was talking about earlier. This is what we were able to find from the city's website. City staff will usually speak to this, but you can see that they focus on that 10-year, 24-hour storm that's been in the conversation arena around storm sewers. But this is really just to show that on the green side, the sanitary sewer interceptors, this is not storm. This water is only generated by us. It's what's used in our homes. Over on the storm side, that is not anything that we generate. That's what comes from the rain. So moving on, what are our interceptors? I think there was a question, what do we own? So we own these green squiggly lines that are shown here. We have 4 interceptors. We have the Holmes Run trunk sewer. That is a completely gravity sewer. It picks up flows from Fairfax County, as well as from that whole western portion of the city of Alexandria, and transports them to AlexRenew. We have the Potomac interceptor. That is the only combined interceptor we have. It carries combined sewer flows. We have the Potomac Yard trunk sewer, and then we also have the Commonwealth interceptor. And both of those lines, you can see where they go. Those 3 lines are city only charges. Remember when we go through the budget and we say, oh, we have these city only or Alexandria only charges. When we fix those come straight from Alexandria. There is no Fairfax portion that gets applied to that. We also currently have, we own the 4 Mile Run pumping station, Slater's Lane pumping station, and Potomac Yard pumping station. We need those pump stations because they have to push the water up over a hill. And then for the most part, the rest of those interceptors, Commonwealth, Potomac Yard, trunk sewer, they are gravity for the majority of the length of those. And you can see we have a new pump station in the offing. That is what I was referencing earlier with the redevelopment, Potomac Yard for Virginia Tech. We needed a pump station at that very top corner. We're working with the developer now, and we've called it the Innovation District Pumping Station. Over on the left of the slide at the Mark Center, there's a small pump station that's in there. It is owned by the federal government, and we are under a BOA contract with them to operate and maintain that facility on their behalf. And that pumps the flow over to Arlington County. So that's a lot of information there about our system, hopefully not repetitive.
A question.
How large are the interceptors generally? They're not all the same size, but generally.
They are not. They run anywhere between 30 inches to 72 inches. 72 inches is really at the plant. Mostly it's 30 to 36, 42. So it goes up and down. It really depends on where you are. Holmes Run is probably the largest. It starts small and then just continues to get bigger and bigger. And I have that actually in the next slide. I'm sorry.
Pump station,
I think
up over the ridge line, and then it's a gravity feed down to the plant.
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of your question.
Are pump stations designed to pump the water up over a ridge line of some sort, and then the gravity flow takes it down to the plant on
It's a ridge line, or there could be an impact. Like I believe that we had to build the Potomac Yard pump station because of the metro and the train there, and we had to get the water up and under that and past that. So sometimes there's just obstacles that we have to move the water.
Okay.
I'll move on, and then if there's continued questions, we can, I'll take them. So this is really just an overview in more detail of what I just went through on the map slide. So if you remember, we have the 4 interceptors, but the Potomac is the one that is combined that skirts there right at the Potomac River in Old Town. You can see that it was one of the original ones. We've had to move pieces of that when they built the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. We relocated an entire section of that interceptor. It gives you the materials, and there I did misspeak. It's 18 inches to 30 inches. I forgot about the Potomac Yard being smaller. But you can see the variety of sizes as those pipes go in and gradually increase. We've also got Potomac Yard is the relatively new one that was installed when they were starting to develop Potomac Yard. Commonwealth and Holmes Run are aged along with the Potomac. They were what was built when the plant was originally built. Holmes Run had a lot of modifications just because you had the metro go in. A lot of this development in the lower Eisenhower Valley caused a lot of relocations as well. Yeah, mostly the metro station, and then down further. Is also the Commonwealth and Holmes Run have had some rehabilitation work done to them. The Commonwealth, especially because there were concerns about the extra water in that area, it has been completely relined from its head at 4 Mile Run all the way down to the facility. So that tightens up that line, and you can see we like these old pictures. It's kind of cool to look at how much has changed in how we install piping and large infrastructure due to OSHA, due to some other rules that are in place, different considerations back then. But you can see when they were installing 01, the old outfall, the Potomac interceptor, that one is just east over past Payne Street. that photo was taken. This one, homes run out towards the western part of Alexandria, and then one closer in. So it's just kind of cool to take a look at that and realize how much has changed since they've been put in not just in the construction, but in the whole landscape and area of the facilities. There was a question, moving on to the next slide, about, well, how do you know what your flows are? What do you do to measure that and make sure that they're running the way that they need to? And we actually, because of the agreements in place for monitoring, for the pump station and our existing operations, and especially for AlexRenew design, we've been working for many years to capture the data that's needed to know the flows that go into the system. So on the left-hand side, you can see we have what we call mag meters, magnetic flow meters. They measure our pump station flows, what's going in and out of those pump stations. And we have those located on all of our pump stations with feedback to the facility so we can monitor them. And then the other two are used pretty much together, and you can see how they're used in that schematic of the manhole and the interceptor over on the right-hand side. It's a level sensor as well as a velocity meter. And when you install them together, it gives you a sense of the volume and the amount of water that we have. And so when you look at them together, and going to the next slide, you can see that we have these installed in various locations. Some are permanently installed. When you go to anyone that's at the pump station, those are all permanent installations of flow meters. We do have a permanent level sensor up along the Commonwealth. There are some temporary ones that we've installed, flow meters, basically at all the outfalls, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are some temporary ones that we have in place to help us as the design builder continues to refine his design. The other two along Homes Run, those are permanent as well, as part of our monitoring system to help with the Fairfax agreements and the agreements we have in place for managing the flows coming in.
A question while we're on that slide, Karen. At the Mark Center, the pumping station that takes the line over to Arlington, who owns that line? The city?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we only have the pump. We don't have the line.
The federal government owns the pump station. We operate and maintain it based on a contract with the federal government. That pump station discharges into a collection system line owned by the city of Alexandria.
Okay, and they pick up that portion of the city that flows into Arlington, the collector lines and all of that. The city does.
Right, so the city owns the lines in the Alexandria portion of that area, and then there's an interceptor that gets picked up at the line, at the city county line, and then our Arlington County maintains that, and we have an agreement with Arlington for maintenance, just like Fairfax has an agreement with us, same kind of arrangement.
Okay.
We do that on behalf of the city.
Yeah, Karen's exactly correct on that scenario. The reason it was structured was that there were concerns about adding the additional flows that would come from the BRAC redevelopment at Mark Center into the Holmes Run trunk sewers. So the Army agreed to redirect their flows over to Arlington, where there's more capacity, I think, in the collection system, if that's right, Karen.
Yes, in the agreement.
Well, that also raises the question with all the development with Virginia Tech and the new tech center down in Potomac Yard. Has that all been factored into the load that we can carry?
So we continue to work with the city and have meetings with them about what their capacity is. If you remember, we signed a new service agreement that puts the design criteria into that service agreement for all of these lines, as well as for the facility, to make sure that they can maintain that 21.6 MGD capacity limit that they have right here at AlexRenew. And so as these development plans come up, we have those conversations with them. There's set meetings to go forward.
Mhm. Okay.
So you heard me reference inflow and infiltration. What exactly is that, and why would you have to line a pipe to make that go away? So inflow is, let's start with infiltration because it's easier. It's really about how groundwater gets into your pipe. So sanitary sewer lines are not like water lines. They're not made to seal up tight. They're not watertight. And so here, sometimes they'll crack, you know, that you'll get tree limbs that'll break into them, things like that. You also have joints. So it's a bell and spigot, and one fits into the other. Sometimes they'll shift or maybe the contractor didn't put them in very well. But that's the sources where you can get water when the groundwater is high above that pipe, seeping into your pipe. What's important to remember that 200% we talked about, or that 2 times our design flow, the average daily flow per capita, already calculated in EPA, 10 state standards, the Virginia regs. They all acknowledge that a sanitary sewer is not going to be watertight. And when you design it, you have design parameters to make that pipe big enough to carry these small amounts of inflow and infiltration that should come into your system. If you get more than that, then you have to take steps to get that out of your system. So that's infiltration. The inflow is a little bit different, and that's really stormwater. And it comes in a couple of different ways. Some are from the manhole covers, right? You see manhole covers, they have holes. You got to let the air, you got to let them go back and forth. They're very small, but they are small sources of ways for water to get into the existing sewer pipe. A greater concern for us are what we consider to be called cross connections. Water that is stormwater that is inadvertently or directly connected to a sanitary sewer pipe. And these are things that should not be connected to the sanitary sewer pipe. So here you can see the roof drain where it's connected into the sanitary sewer lateral, or the catch basin. Remember, we saw that street with the catch basin on it. Those should not be, but they can be large sources of inflow in allowing stormwater to get into your sanitary sewer system, causing those of us who run sanitary sewer systems and plants trouble, as sometimes you get too much of this I&I into your system. So what does that look like hydraulically for us if we go to the next slide? If you take just that manhole, what does that mean for you? So we introduced a new concept, the hydraulic grade line here. And if you can walk around saying HGL all the time, you will sound like a really nerdy engineer. So let me tell you what that means. So it's really, what's the elevation in the pipe? That's what the hydraulic grade line is, to put it in the simplest terms possible. There's a lot more behind it, but if you can remember that, we're good. It's that depth of flow. So you see the little blue line there. Under normal conditions, right, the 24/7, it's coming from your home. That's the very left-hand side. And you can see that the pipe should flow in about 1/4 to 1/3 full under those normal design conditions when there's no rain. Now, remember I said we put that 2 times factor in there in our design because we realized these pipes are not watertight. That's the next one. So number 2 is where that's your dry weather flow plus any I&I from a storm event that gets in, because that's normally what happens. But sometimes, and these are the 2 that are on the right-hand side, you can have those cross connections. You can have a collection system that's leaky. It has too many pipes that have cracks or broken or haven't been maintained. And you can get what's called excess I&I into your system. And that's where the pipe is surcharged. So you see that hydraulic grade line going up. It's going up into the manhole. And that's where the water is starting to fill up, and it's starting to actually pressurize. that interceptor, right? There's too much pressure and head pushing down on it. And when you get too much storm flow into your sanitary sewer system, that water has to go somewhere. Your HGL goes way up. Sometimes it goes above the road and it can leap out of your manhole cover. You've seen that before where sometimes there's these geysers or you see manhole covers that kind of get shot out. That's what's happening there is there's so much water so fast it can't, it needs to relieve itself. And so it finds places to relieve itself. Sometimes it's through escaping on the road. Sometimes it's what we see in those basement backups. Right? And when you have those, that's telling you too much stormwater in your system. That line is getting pressurized and it has to relieve itself. So what do you do about this, Karen? So on the next slide, we actually have a couple of things that we tried to do. And we're required by our VPDS permit to make sure we don't have excessive I&I in our system, that we maintain our collection, our sewer system to be that a separate sanitary sewer where it's designed to be. And so you can see on the left-hand side, you remember I talked about the lining that we did in the Homes Run Trunk Sewer in the Commonwealth Interceptor. That's what that looks like. And there's different ways to put that sewer lining in. And sometimes you'll say, oh, well, that takes some of the capacity because you have this really teeny tiny liner that goes in. But actually, from an engineering perspective, it smooths it out. And also you don't get that extra water in it. So you can actually gain capacity when you do sewer rehabilitations. On the right-hand side, and this is a big program in many cities, is the disconnects, the downspout disconnects from the sanitary sewer system. So on the left-hand side of that cross connection box that you see, you can see where the roof drain and the toilet are connected here into that sanitary sewer lateral. When you get enough of those into your laterals and they're all hitting an interceptor, that's a lot of extra flow going in. So basically what you have on that left-hand side are many, many teeny tiny combined sewer systems, which we're not supposed to have. And then on the right-hand side, what a lot of jurisdictions are doing is going in and helping the homeowner remove that and get those roof drains into a separate storm system or back onto the ground where they belong. What a homeowner can do, and we've heard people doing this along the Commonwealth, and this is done all across the country when you have situations like this where that HGL gets high, is we put in a backflow preventer. It's a big flap. At the end of the day, it's a big flap when you're running normally and there's no rainwater, it just lays open as you see on top. But when the sewer gets surcharged, it lifts that flap and blocks it so that no water goes back into your house, right? So it's a backflow, right? We're not allowing the backflow into your basement. So those are some ways that we have. We don't have very many, obviously, or if the sewer rehabilitation is really bad, you have to go in and dig the line up and put a new one in. But these are the simple ways that we look at removing inflow and infiltration from a separate sanitary sewer system. So what I wanted to do, because
Karen, before you move on, by the way, this is a fantastic presentation, and I wish everybody on Commonwealth Avenue could enjoy this. The backflow preventer, where is that located relative to the home? Is this sort of within the connection between the house and the lateral?
I am not certain exactly where they would put it. It probably depends on the location of the lateral to the main and the distances they have and the slant of the lateral. So it probably changes for each one, but it is on the lateral. It's just, I can't tell you exactly where on that lateral.
Yeah, and this would be in most cases a cost incurred by the homeowner?
It really depends on the program and the locality. So I know I have some peers, I'm trying to remember which state, it's one of the M states. I apologize, it's been a long time since we've gotten together, that they are actually paying for it. They have a program to do this. Other jurisdictions, and many of them do it as well, is the homeowner pays. And then there's a lot of them where it's a split, right? The locality will help the homeowner pay.
Typically, how expensive is it?
I honestly don't know. I think it ranges in cost, and I couldn't speak to that right now.
No, that's fine. I see Erin has her hand up. Erin.
I'm just going to add on to that. This is an excellent presentation, but the city does have a program where we offer homeowners up to it's 50% of the cost, so up to a maximum reimbursement of $2,000, and that's because we're seeing that typically these things cost. The vast majority of them cost under $4,000. So that's why we do the 50% up to $2,000 in the city.
Thanks, Erin. I knew you would.
And Erin, is this something that folks on Commonwealth use or make available?
So this program got initiated in the fall of 2018. Obviously, that was one of our the big wet weather year. We had a big storm. We've had big storms since, and so we'll see these applications for reimbursement kind of come in chunks. Pretty much each fall we'll see them, and I think I have to go back. We update. I go and look at the numbers monthly, but I think to date we have. Last time I looked at them, we have about 130 reimbursements that have been sent. So that's pretty good participation. Some of them are they're mostly in the eastern part of the city, so like the Delray neighborhoods, like around Commonwealth. We have some that have been put in Old Town too. So there, but very few in the western part of the city where it's new sewer construction, less leaky sewer systems.
Thank you. That was, I'm glad you jumped into the discussion. That's very, very informative. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. I'm glad she jumped in too. Yes, and you often see them. I'm glad Erin brought up the fact that they have some in Old Town in the combined area. So I do know of combined sewer localities that use backflow preventers as well when they have too much stormwater that goes in. And some of the questions that I had received, not just from the community, but also from one or two board members, had to do with what we're doing around Commonwealth Interceptor and what's our role when it comes to all of the water that is going in people's basements. And because the community is very emotional and we just tend to use the word sewer to mean everything. It reflects back on AlexRenew is like, what are you doing about the sewer? So I wanted to walk through all of this and put it in context around the Commonwealth Interceptor. So to set the stage for what you're looking at, on the left-hand side is just a hydraulic map, essentially, of the Commonwealth Interceptor. It starts at Caton Avenue. So if you look to the right and you see the length of the Commonwealth Interceptor, the little triangle is 4 Mile Run. Just a squiggle down, maybe where that green line is poked, that's the Caton Avenue. So remember, we need a 4 Mile Run pump station to push it up over the hill. And you can see that hill there, right? So to the left of that is where it goes down. You've got the hill. Now the rest of this is all gravity flow that you're seeing. So the brown line that you see is ground. That's the ground level along Commonwealth Avenue. The gray is the actual size of the pipe. And then the blue is what you're seeing in terms of the wastewater flow, the average daily flow per capita per all of the people that live there. So under normal conditions, under dry weather flow, Commonwealth Interceptor is doing its job. It's doing what it was designed to do. You can see it's not even, it's maybe about a third full during the normal daily flows that it takes from intercepting all of the laterals and the mains from the collection system that we have. And then it goes all the way down. You can see what we call the Wharf South Bridge. And then it goes into the headworks there, so that kind of flat area is the plant. Basically, that's where the line gets big and the water comes into the facility. So you can see as it goes down the hill. Those little vertical lines that you see running up and down, they're actually manholes that run along a Commonwealth interceptor. So you guys good with the explanation?
This is really good. This is, whoever did this map is
You've
gets
seen
it.
these before, you probably forget. I think we walked through these in like 2017 and 2018 when we were talking about AlexRenew and some of the flow studies and who does what. But I don't know, that was a while ago, so I've
Well, but I'm enjoying it now for the second time.
Good. Good. I know I'm nerding out on you, but I appreciate your time. I think it's important to give you context.
No, I live off Commonwealth. This is not theoretical for me at all.
Right.
This is the real deal.
So to your point, what happens in a storm event? So what we did was we picked a storm, the July 8th, 2019 storm. That was that 50-year return storm. And we ran our models based on all that flow data from those pieces of equipment that I showed you earlier. And this is what we came up with. And you can see what happens. The hydraulic grade line went way up. What does that mean? Well, look at where's the gray pipe? It's not gray anymore. It's completely full of water. And it means that in those manholes, remember when I showed you the manholes that had the water going up and that hydraulic grade line was way high? That's what you're seeing with the blue line. And in many areas from Walnut down to, I guess, about King Street, there were actually conditions where the manholes were all the way at the top. That's what the little squiggly lines mean. They were either at the top or trying to escape out of those manholes. The one area where it was not that surcharged is where we still had up at the top where 4 Mile Run Pump Station is working into Caton Avenue. There's a little bit of a gap there. You can still see a bit of the gray pipe. But during a storm event, what happens is too much storm water gets into the Commonwealth interceptor. It causes that surcharge. And you remember I talked about what happens then. It's pressurizing the pipe and that water has to go somewhere. And so you have a health condition when you're pushing that stormwater back into basements or having it try to find another way to escape onto your roads. So that's what happens.
Before you move on, could I ask a question? So this is the Commonwealth Interceptor does not service the combined area based on kind of your map on the right.
That is correct.
What is causing the inflow to this degree? Is it just the manholes, or what? Clearly, it wasn't intended to do this.
That's right. It wasn't intended to do this. So that means that somewhere along the line, you have catch basins, you have roof drains, you have other things that have either been grandfathered in or inadvertently tied into the system. And as the city continues to look at its solutions for stormwater along the Commonwealth, it's important that they take into account all of these flows that are now going into the Commonwealth because they need to be removed. We under our permit can't take this amount of flow coming into that. So
then is there some kind of are they going after all of the cross connections at some point? Is there like a plan to sort of do that, or is that just?
I think that's something that the city has not yet looked at. That's why we're talking about it. And that as they develop a plan for dealing with stormwater along the Delray area, because they have a lot more than roof drains, right? They're going to have to look at a holistic plan and account for these flows and then work through that system. Because if they just take it out, they've got to do something with that water, right? So we're going to have to work together to come up with a common solution that works for all of us over time.
Is there there has to be a separate system there? Is that already to capacity that they couldn't tie back in, or is that still that we don't know because they're not there yet?
The stormwater system, according to what I've read, is undersized for where they're at right now. That's why they're having a lot of problems. They also have a lot of overland flooding now. I don't know if it's from development or whatever, but there's a cadre of different issues, and they need to be teased out first to figure out what's causing what, and then what's the ultimate collective solution going forward, so that they can put their money in the right places. And there's some people that, I mean, there's some issues that are really immediately. So they've got to figure out short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and then how they make those investments. And that's where that stormwater fee increase, this is really what is driving it, is this whole Delray area. It's also a bowl, so that doesn't help it either. It doesn't have a lot of good flow in the area. So these are all things the city staff and their consultants are being challenged with, and they're working very, very quickly. What I wanted to make you aware of is we get feedback that, well, it's your interceptor, and from the public, because sewer is sewer, but sewer isn't sewer, right? There's different ones, and we're doing the best we can, but the sewer is being used in a capacity outside of what it's really designed to do.
And I can't remember from the earlier slide, was the Commonwealth Interceptor one of the ones that has already been lined, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've done all that we can in this particular interceptor, and it's sized appropriately. It's
that is correct. Yes, there were issues back in 2003. There was a large snow event that had rain on top of it that caused a lot of flooding, and a lot of people put backflow preventers in as well there, and that drove us in the 2009 to 2011 timeframe to go ahead and fully reline this interceptor pipe and make sure that it was as tight as it could be.
And Karen, didn't we just within the last year or two inspect that?
We cleaned and inspected the Potomac interceptor. We inspected, I think, a portion of the Commonwealth. I would need to go back and see if it was the full length. I just don't recall.
But the city recognizes that this is not an infiltration problem.
I am not sure yet, but we continue to work with our colleagues there to make them aware of this. What I wanted to make you aware of is that at least the staff has done our job, and that we've been getting a lot of comments from the public about sewer. And again, remember, I started this by saying we all need to start with the same terminology and vernacular. That's what we're getting to kind of walk you through that. And then the other thing is the question or the statement we always get, well, RiverRenew will take care of this. If you flip to the next slide, please remember RiverRenew is a water quality project. It is not a water quantity project. It is designed to remove or to capture combined sewage. It's a health issue, it's a bacteria issue. And that's what we're doing at those 4 outfalls. We're capturing it and then bringing it back, that captured combined flow back to the facility. So even with RiverRenew, the same storm event, when you model it after it's all done, at Duke Street, where we pick up and we had that new hoof run interceptor, yes, we'll drop the line down, but you still have too much inflow and infiltration along the Commonwealth, lifting that hydraulic grade line that isn't removed from RiverRenew, because again, it's not designed to deal with that. This is a separate sanitary sewer. RiverRenew.
Can you toggle back to the last slide and then back to this one, just to see the difference again?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will send you the slide deck along with the slide deck from yesterday.
Okay.
Great.
And so we wanted to put this.
Can I add something here, a historical perspective? When I first got involved in city stuff, it was 1996 to 2003. I was on BFAC. last 3 years of my BFAC term, we did a lot of writing about the cities trying to correct or improve the infiltration and inflow problem in the sanitary sewer system. In fact, when I got to the city in 2003, we established a separate sanitary sewer fund, if you would, within the city to help manage the finances for those improvements. But those improvements were mostly lining the sanitary sewers, the main, not our interceptors that AlexRenew has, but sewer systems sort of go from smaller lines to bigger lines to bigger lines. And the city went back throughout the entire city, but mostly in the older sections where they had a lot of cracks and infiltration, and put lining into those sanitary sewers. The the inflow problems, which Karen's diagram described, may not have all been solved at that point in time. It seemed to be more, in my memory banks, more about fixing their sanitary sewers so that the rainwater didn't leak into their sanitary sewers and then flow into our interceptors and overflow our interceptors. I say this because it's not like the city has not known about infiltration and inflow and the sort of capacity problems of the sewers. Because of that problem, it's been 20 years that they've been working at it, not fast enough, not well enough to solve these problems in the last 5 years. But when you look at the charts that Karen sent to us with rainfall and the sewer flows for the last 3 months, you can see that our flows pick up when there's a lot of rain. Well, some of that might be the combined sewer, but a lot of it is also this inflow and infiltration coming into our system from rainfall, even outside the combined sewer flow, the combined sewer area of the city. And so it's kind of, the water pops up perhaps from our Commonwealth interceptor, but it isn't the Commonwealth interceptor that's failed. It's upstream from that, where all the rainwater is getting into the system in these smaller nooks and crannies, and then it accumulates.
I recall 30 years ago, I was in a rental house in Delray, and we had a sump pump in the basement that pumped water up into a laundry tub, which then went into the sewer system. And Delray's got lots of wet basements, and I would imagine that is not uncommon.
No, and Mr. Johnson, I really appreciate you sharing that information. The city, the county, and AlexRenew have been working since 1995, when I first started here, to really look at, hey, this AlexRenew gets flooded every time there's like a little bit of teeny tiny rain. And so really that's the genesis here of RiverRenew, is that we were able to pivot and address, originally we were just addressing wet weather, and pull that in and also create this capture program. And so it's a hard thing to handle. We're all aware of it. What I wanted to make sure, and you said it very nicely, is it's not a Commonwealth interceptor issue. It's a whole lot of issues put together that have really come to a head with climate change, with development, with impervious area. There's just so many different things that are now driving this whole area to have too much water and nowhere for it to go. And the unfortunate thing is it's very emotional, so people don't understand the difference between the stormwater system, a flooding issue, the sanitary sewer, RiverRenew. They just know their bills are going up and they're not getting any relief from the water. So thank you for clarifying that for me.
So really effectively, in wet weather, the Commonwealth interceptor acts as a combined sewer.
Yeah, if we flip to the next slide, I'm glad you picked that up. But these are charts that we put together about what it looks like in the storms or in our sanitary sewers when we have rain events. This helps us design like RiverRenew. So to your point, Mr. Beal, the Commonwealth Interceptor acts exactly like a storm sewer. So we put the Holmes Run trunk sewer along the bottom, and you can see there's some inflow or infiltration there. As you go along, the storm happens, the water gets into the groundwater, and you see that infiltration. But the Commonwealth, it starts raining and it immediately spikes up, and it stays there as the rain comes. And then as soon as the rain falls off, you see that spike go back down, and it's still a little high. It still has some infiltration, just like the Holmes Run, but you can see them both trending down over time with that. So to your point, yes, it serves as a stormwater / combined sewer, which is not supposed to do. And so that is something that we are going to, we all know about it. We're going to continue to work with the city. I wanted you as the team and the spokespeople for AlexRenew to understand, we know this, we're working with the city. It's got to be a joint effort. As the city goes forward, they have to realize that this water needs to come out of the Commonwealth. It can't go other places, right? We can't keep adding stormwater into the Commonwealth Interceptor. We've got to find solutions to take it out. And RiverRenew is not that. RiverRenew is not a water quantity program. It is a water quality program.
Karen, this chart is brilliant. It is indisputable. It is unequivocal. It is just so clear what's going on here. Do we know where's the sensor that's picking up this data? Is this sensor
That's at
near?
Walnut Street.
It's at Walnut Street.
So it's labeled there. And so both that one, and then you can see we have another level sensor. If you remember the original graphic back where I had them located, it's upstream on Holmes Run. They're outside what we call the backwater condition that might be created at the plant. And so they're not influenced by water that could be coming or going, pushing and pulling as it's trying to get into the wastewater plant, because that might also be limiting. It's really just the flows that are in those two interceptors.
How many folks are familiar with this data? Is this the first time that you put this together and looked at it, or is this widely understood?
So this is the first time for this particular storm, but remember, we've been working on our wet weather program with the county and the city for years. So we're familiar with graphs like this. What I will say is in the last 3 years or so, 4 years, we've had some really extreme events and that are kind of a little bit different than what we've seen, in the historical sense of this. But yes, it's probably the first time we're all seeing it together, but we are aware of this.
It's a very powerful piece of analysis, by the way. Thank you for putting this together.
Yes. Well, thank you for asking the questions. It's your questions to me or the questions from the community that help me realize I'm not doing a good enough job educating and explaining kind of the basics of what we do. And you can't, one, be advocates and have faith in staff if you don't understand at a reasonable conversational level what we're doing and what we're facing. Right? This is not a quick fix. You can't just flick a switch and make this problem go away. It's going to cost money. It takes a lot of time and analysis. We've been at this since 1995. Right, to get the data and get it together. We've now got a cadre of data, but we're going to have to work together in a team form and figure out what is the best way to approach this. We're going to have input from the community, so it's good to see you've got that stormwater SAG, and then just understand what the things we have in place will and won't do. RiverRenew isn't going to touch this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my next question is, I wholeheartedly agree with John that this was a very informative, very clear presentation. And I guess I'm wondering if these presentations are being given to the public during public meetings, particularly with RiverRenew. So I know that we're doing a lot of community stakeholdering with RiverRenew. And I think it's really important to manage expectations. And this to me is very clear. You've said it very clearly that River Renew is not going to impact this. And I think and I guess I'm wondering if these types of presentations are being presented at those types of meetings.
So at the
Gotcha.
stakeholder advisory group meeting, we kind of share what's going to happen and what's going on. That's the only public interaction we have. The city is the lead on the collection system and on stormwater. And I'm sure if we were asked, we would help send the message out there, but it's not our role to go out and share this information. Again, because those questions were asked and a couple of board members specifically asked about, can't you do something about the flooding in trying to explain we have a very particular role. So I hear you, and it's something that we can start to work into the SAG presentations, the Stakeholder Advisory Group for River Renew. What we don't want to do is confuse people about this issue, which is distinct and separate from the River Renew issue.
Yeah, and maybe that's really, and I completely understand that that's not necessarily our role, but I think that River Renew is such a big investment, and it's getting a lot of attention. And I think managing expectations as to what River Renew will actually accomplish is important, because what River Renew will accomplish is what it was designed to accomplish. But the expectations that it's going to accomplish something else, I think probably needs to be part of the messaging.
Adriana, let me jump in. You're bringing up great points. The city is establishing a stormwater advisory committee for this issue, and by strange coincidence, I was appointed to be on that board. We haven't met yet, but I think these kinds of issues are going to be tackled by this advisory committee. This is a complicated issue, and this is my neighborhood, right? I mean, I live a couple blocks from the corner of Walnut and Commonwealth. And, you know, if you have a house there, a very expensive house, like they are there, and water is backing up through your toilet, it looks, from where you sit, it looks like a sanitary sewer problem. And it really isn't, but that's the way it looks to you. This is a very difficult issue. I mean, and I think untangling it and solving it I mean, Karen's right. We've been working on this for 25 years at least, right? And the only solution is a significant investment in infrastructure, frankly. I mean, there's no other way around it. Yeah.
And I think your points are very valid. You know, sometimes I try things out on the board, and then we carry it forward to the stakeholder advisory group. So both this and nutrients are probably something that we will share with them, because they have a role. The stakeholder advisory group are also supposed to be advocates in taking information out. It's just that we have to be thoughtful with the messaging as we go forward.
I'd like to offer one comment that, John, you're right. This is very complicated, and we've got, I think, three problems. The first is that this spike in rainfall drives flooding and drives sewer backups into people's basements. The second is that most of the water in the interceptor is still coming to the plant, and we're treating stormwater runoff, which we shouldn't be. But the third is that if you got rid of this, if you didn't have the flows into the interceptor, that water would still have to go somewhere else. And that's going to be a tough one to deal with.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if your basement floods, it still floods, right?
Yeah.
And whether the water comes, you know, from your downspout or comes up through your basement drain or toilet, it's still a flooded basement. And this is just a thorny problem But, and again, the only solution
Oh, geez.
is infrastructure.
Infrastructure, yeah.
Always infrastructure, right? And keeping up with the infrastructure, right? We have $1 billion in assets here at AlexRenew, and the board is wonderful at understanding our budget, working with the CFO and our financial staff to understand that we have to have a long-range plan. We look 10 or 15 years out, and to keep all this stuff working, we have to continually make investments. We can't just defer things. So this is kind of the takeaway from tonight. What's the difference between a separate sanitary sewer, a storm sewer, a separate storm sewer, and the combined sewer? And they're each different. They each have different design parameters, and they're each designed to do different things. Our interceptors have capacity and are designed and do what they're supposed to do. Those 3 that are separate sanitary interceptors, and there's 1 combined. We have I&I in the system. We really need to make sure that there's a cross-connection program, a disconnect program, not just in the Commonwealth, but throughout the whole city. That makes sure that the city has capacity at AlexRenew for future growth, for current growth, for what it needs, and that AlexRenew is getting separate sanitary sewer. We're doing our mission, which is human health, is cleaning up the wastewater that comes to us. A little bit about the Commonwealth, just a reminder, because we have had questions about why aren't we taking care of that from a stormwater perspective. We rehabbed it in that 2009 to 2011 time period. I did get an answer to your question, Mr. Beal. We inspected the Commonwealth Interceptor about 3 years ago. Good memory, thank you. And that some of the capacity issues we have are what we believe are those cross connections. Again, what we've belabored is River Renew is not a capacity solution. It's not a quantity, it's a quality job. And then if you're a homeowner, work with the city. They have a great program. They're going to help you pay for these backflow preventers. Put one in. It cannot hurt you. It can only help you in this. And if you've got roof drains connected up, that's going to be part of your problem, and it's going to be part of what causes that the separate sanitary sewer to pressurize and come back in. And that's what I wanted to have a conversation with you around tonight. I'll leave you with some talking points and try to answer those of you who asked me some questions about this. Try to answer those questions. And again, I will send this slide deck to you tomorrow so you can have it. There is a lot of information here. So if you take a look at it and later on you have questions, please feel free to send me an email and I'll collect all those and respond back out next month if there's more than one question.
Okay, fair enough.
Karen, this is John. I probably sound like a broken record, but you and your team just keep outdoing yourselves with the quality of your work. I thought the presentation at the SAG and at the meeting with the mayor yesterday were superb, and they were. This is even better.
Yep.
As far as the density of the material and presented in such a way that makes this very complex material clear, and the amount of work that must have gone into this presentation is significant. The density of those graphs. Hats off. You all deserve the Edwin Tufte Award for presentation quality. I think board members, we probably do need to create an award for presentation quality, because this is really superb. A question for you, Karen. Can I share this with folks in my neighborhood, like my civic association, Rosemont? Because we're at the epicenter of the flood, floodwaters there.
It is a public document. It's being shared publicly. So yes, once I send it to you tomorrow, you are welcome to share it. We are available to talk to homeowner associations. We can do it. Erin can come along and we can do it together, whatever works best for the community. But yes, it is a public document, so feel free to share. And I would say, as kind as your words are, we're only as good as you make us. So asking the questions and making me think about what am I not sharing, what am I not educating on, gets us all to be better. And to get this information out, it's got a lot of emotion, a lot of concerns, a lot of people on different sides. At the end of the day, we just all have to work together to get to the best solution. And it's going to be painful, but we just have to work together.
Yeah, talking about work together. I mean, if we do present this at, say, the Rosemont Civic Association, I think this would be the city staff and AlexRenew together, kind of going through.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Because this is not one person's problem or another person's problem. It rains on all our houses, right?
So to speak.
Water fee, yes.
But Karen, it seems like we have, from what I've taken what you've said, that we have a big job in making the city aware of what this issue is, because it sounds like they're not completely clued into it.
No, I would say they know.
They know.
It's making all of us aware of what the different terminology is, and that this isn't a simple solution. It's not, we can't put a wall up or whatever. That all of us play a role. All of us are impacted, and whatever one solution is going to impact another solution. So we can't just, pick a couple of small projects. We really have to have a holistic solution, and then figure out how you're going to implement that in the stepwise progress that you can. It's kind of like, we designed AlexRenew, but they're not running out and starting construction in all the locations, right? There's a stepwise progression about how you have to build it to get that machine from one location to the other successfully. It's kind of like that.
The slide with the spike in runoff is the most frightening thing I've seen in years. It's just.
That is one of the most brilliantly constructed graphs I've ever seen. And
they're the normal graphs we use, and it's graphs like that help design AlexRenew. Helped inform both the city and the county and AlexRenew about what our issues are and what we needed to do to come up with the best solutions moving forward.
Excellent work. Excellent work. Madam CEO, does that complete your update for today?
That is the update. There was a couple more things. I've added some slides in just so you had them from some of the conversations we had. We still have, if there's any questions on the AlexRenew dashboard or the monthly financials, I'd be happy to try to answer those for you.
Are there questions from the board?
They look pretty straightforward.
We have all the easements in hand now.
And Shahram and Aaron, questions? Do you have any questions? Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't have any questions. It was an excellent presentation. Nicely done.
Thank you, Shahram.
Thank you. Thank you.
No questions for me either. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. And okay, then on this nice spring day that is not raining, do we have a motion to adjourn? Moved. Thank you, Adriana. Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Enjoy the spring, and we'll see you
Soon.
in May, and also on Saturday in May on the 22nd.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.